Hi everyone, I'm Jane at Rockin' Worms. I hope you're having a good evening. I know I am because I'm finally done counting cocoons from this past week's breeder bin cycle. I had posted a video a couple days ago with the results of the first breeder bin. And as promised, I've counted cocoons for breeder bin number 2 and number 3. And I'm going to share with you what those counts are and what conclusions I'm drawing from the data that I will be sharing with you tonight. Okay, so as a recap on breeder bin number 1, this is 2,988 cocoons out of 796 breeders in 3 gallons of bedding for a 16-day cycle. Now, a red wiggler cycle usually is 21 days, but that, that's the max. It's not even the maximum. I mean, you can run it for what you want, but the normal length of the breeder cycle is 21 days, but certainly, making it shorter works as well too. Now, listen, there's a lot of wisps in here and some of the cocoons because I've been stuck to the bowl here because I've been keeping this very moist during the time that they've been hanging out, waiting for me to finish counting bins number 2 and 3, okay? So I kept this very moist. I'm going to be adding all the cocoons to 2 cocoon bins at the end of me showing you everything. I'm not going to do it on camera because it takes too much time, but I'm just not going to scrape out the bowls because I don't want to have to, scrape those worms out twice, one out of the bowl and then one off the tray into a cocoon bin. So, okay. So this is what approximately 3,000 cocoons look like. You can see that there's a lot of hatching already going on. There's lots of little wisps, which is fantastic, right? So that means that 1, the cocoons are viable, and 2, that me keeping them moist for this interim period of time did not, negatively impact at least lots of the cocoons, okay? Okay. The important criteria or, end thing I want you to take away from this tray is I got 3.75 cocoons per worm during that cycle, 16 days, okay? So 3.75 cocoons per worm, okay? This is bin number 2, which had 918 breeders in it. I got a total of 3,233 cocoons. They were also in about 3 gallons of bedding, and the calculation comes out to 3.52. A lot of bigger worms in here for some reason. Maybe because they were in their bin for longer, so they had more food and room to maneuver in than the breeder bin 1 cocoon and worms because they were, stuck in the little Chinese food container for a much longer period of time. Anyways, so this is 3,233 cocoons and some big worms. Let's see if we see some little hatches going on here. You can see some of the little baby worms, okay? So again, the metric, that's the word I was looking for earlier. The metric from this one is 3.52 cocoons per worm for this breeding cycle. So not as good as 3.75, but to my way of thinking, certainly in the ballpark, okay? So the last one is breeder bin number 3. And this was 730 breeders in 4 gallons of bedding. And I got 2,089 cocoons. which comes out to be, I just want to make sure I don't have anything stuck on there, comes out to be 2.84 cocoons per worm for the breeding cycle. And again, they're kind of stuck to the bottom because I'm keeping everything super moist. And I'm not going to, you know, again, scrape them out until I put them directly into their cocoon bin. All right. So why the different metric results? Why am I getting 3.75 cocoons per worm in bin number 1, 3.52 in bin number 2, and only 2.84 in bin number 3? I think that bin number 1 and bin number 2 are pretty much comparable. And I'm going to say those results are, you know, similar enough for me to tell me that this kind of bedding, 3 gallons with, you know, somewhere around 800, 850 worms will allow me to forecast that I'll get about 3,000 cocoons, okay? Now, in the last bin, the 730 breeders that was in 4 gallons that gave me the lower metric of 2.84. I think the reason that happened was it was too much bedding for the number of breeders I had, okay? So if I had only 3 gallons of bedding in here, my thought is that my cocoons per worm would have increased to reflect similarly to what I got in the other 2 bins. Because here's the bottom line. Worms need to kind of meet and greet each other in order to mate, in order to throw out cocoons. And if you have too much space for them to wander around in trying to find a mate, it's going to cut down on the amount of mating they're going to do. So one way to think about it is, you know, 2 people looking to mingle in a stadium have a harder time finding each other than 2 people looking to mingle finding themselves in an intimate cafe, okay? This cocoon bin with the 730 was more of a stadium, and the other two breeder bins were more of the intimate cafe. So I also want to tell you, by the way, I am putting in the description all this data in a nice little, you know, not chart, but a nice little listing. So you're going to be able to look at the numbers, look at the calculations, and, you know, decide how you want it to inform what you're doing going forward or not. For me, what I'm going to do is basically shoot for having about 850 worms, give or take, into 3 gallons of bedding, give or take, for the, you know, 21-day cycle, give or take, okay? None of this is precise measurement, people. I want you to be clear on this. This is me doing the best I can with measuring my bedding, which is, you know, a little fast and loose with my, you know, cut down water bottles. It's a little fast and loose with my counting of breeders and my counting of cocoons, because it's very hard to get precise numbers when you're dealing with these kinds of animals, okay? I'm not a lab. I'm doing the best I can. So please take the data I'm sharing with you with a grain of salt, but also I do honestly believe that it provides at least a touch point to move forward to make more informed decisions on how to manage your breeder bins in order to get the kind of results vis-a-vis cocoons that you want. Okay, so I hope that made some sense. And the last thing I'm going to say about these breeder bins and these cocoon results actually has nothing to do with the cocoon production. It has to do with the castings production. In the video that I posted a couple days ago, I also shared that all the bedding, except for like a cup out of 3 gallons of bedding, all but a cup went through a 1/4-inch sieve at the end. And the rest of it went through a 1/8 inch screening or a 1/12 inch screening, which is, again, to my mind and how I like to do it, good solid castings ready to be used in my garden. Okay. The reason I did the 1/4 inch is, even though it's not something I normally do, a lot of my compatriot worm keepers use the 1/4 inch screen, and I wanted to test how my bedding result after 16, 20 days in that breeder cycle compared to what they were sifting out at a 1/4 inch. And I was very pleased at the results I got, that in essence all my breeder bedding became castings. Okay, so I think that was what I wanted to share with you. I appreciate you sticking with me through this experiment. Again, this is one trial in one set of 3 bins. If I run this again sometime in the future, I would hope I will get similar results, but certainly not exact results. I mean, that's just the way it is when you run trials and experiments. But for now, I am done counting cocoons for at least a couple months. And I got to tell you, that kind of makes me a little happy, okay? Because it is a time commitment to do it, all right? So questions, issues, concerns, how does this relate to what you want to do in your bins and your breeders? Bring it on in the, comment section, and let's have some conversations and, see how you want to use this information to make your worm journey work better for you. Okay? So thank you again for joining me. I remain, as always, yours in the dirt, Jane.